Hello, welcome to another Looney Tunes review video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to follow my journey to review all 1000 classic Looney Tunes shorts and give this video a like as well. So this is a review for Don't Give Up the Sheep. And with me today is someone who hasn't given up the sheep already, is my good friend S.C. McPeter. Say hi.
Hello, Anthony.
Yes, we're back for another year, 1953. So, just to go through a few bits of info to get underway. So, as mentioned, this is Don't Give Up the Sheep, which was released the 3rd of January 1953. It's the 668th in the series, and it's directed by Chuck Jones. You can find this on the Looney Tunes Golden Collection Volume 1 DVD set. It has since been restored in HD, although it hasn't been on any physical media set yet. Although I hope they fix the low pitch issue, because at the moment, the pitch is too low. I fixed it for myself, but yeah, hopefully they'll fix it for physical media release. In case you haven't seen this one, can't show you the full cartoon here due to copyright on YouTube. It'll just get blocked, so you'll have to look elsewhere to find this short if you're looking for it online. But what happens here, it's very straightforward. A sheepdog named Ralph, and I'll get into the naming part very shortly. So a sheepdog named Ralph goes to work looking after sheep. But an unnamed wolf tries to sneak off with some sheep, but as you'd expect, to no avail. So it's very straightforward. A few bits of trivia. So first of all, the title. It's a play on the term "Don't Give Up the Ship," which is an unofficial Navy motto where Navy officers should just keep on fighting and, well, not give up the ship. So it's pretty straightforward there. But more importantly, this is the first appearance of the sheepdog and wolf characters, who will subsequently be known as Sam Sheepdog and Ralph Wolf. Here, the sheepdog is known as Ralph, and again, we'll get into that.
Hello, Fred.
Hello, Ralph.
So you have a total of 6 shorts, and much like the first appearance of the Cody and Roadrunner, Pepper Le Pew, even Bugs Bunny for Chuck Jones, you would have some slightly different designs here, and then from the second short onwards, the formula would kind of settle in.
The other thing you also notice is that, again, they aren't as well defined. I think one thing that sort of defines Chuck Jones is that he never quite gets it 100% the first time, but he usually gets it 100% the second or third time with the character.
Oh, 100%, because if you look at Pepper Le Pew's first appearance, the ending is that he's not really this French swooning character. He's actually an American, he's a married man trying to cheat on his wife, and of course, he has to look after the kids. The Roadrunner does probably the closest, but then you have the backgrounds which are very realistic and the designs are slightly different. Even Marvin the Martian, he has one type of voice at the beginning in his first short, but now he sounds like his usual, "Oh, that makes me very angry" type voice that he would end up doing.
That sort of stock voice Mel uses for non-Warner shorts usually. He also used that voice to a similar extent in Amateur Night, I think, but he usually used it for other cartoon directors, usually when he wasn't being as well directed. But I think it works perfectly for Marvin. But back to this short again, we're seeing he hasn't defined both characters as blue-collar workers, and also the fact that he isn't necessarily playing around with the idea of as a day job. It looks like they were trying to parody the Roadrunners after they became a once-a-year series, because they are very similar, except again, Sam plays a bodyguard rather than a thing that the wolf is trying to catch.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really only for the second short where we have the refinements at play, which is what these wolf and sheepdog shorts are known for. And the biggest one is that, unlike in this short, we have the sheepdog being the blue-collar worker. From the second short onwards, they're both blue-collar workers, and they even get along after work, which I thought is the perfect twist, and it makes those later shorts a lot better. And that's not to say this short's terrible by any means. It's just that I think that extra bit of refinement makes the cartoon concept a lot better. But anyway, that is what it is. Plus, I prefer the design of Ralph Wolf being, I guess, a coyote design with a red nose, as opposed to here where he looks kind of weird.
Again, also a little bit baggier, because again, the coyote around this period was usually a lot more skinnier. Here he kind of has Sylvester's kind of body, where he's a lot baggier, clownish.
Yeah, but the sheepdog's design is about the same. And here's what's interesting about the sheepdog design, because by this point, when Chuck designed characters, the characters' eyes would be very expressive. And yes, the eyes are expressive on the sheepdog too. But here, he's designed a character where you barely see his eyes at all, only in the very important moments. So I thought that was an interesting idea. Maybe Chuck just wanted to play around with that whole idea, you know?
Yeah, I think so, and also the fact that sheepdogs are usually known to have sort of baggy hair on top, sometimes covering their eyes. But it does play for a nice little character thing where he has to lift it up, and they would play around with it in future sorts. I think the main thing that's a big takeaway for this is that it is a great concept itself of just having the sheepdog be a blue collar worker where he's going in and out clocking. But I think when they expanded it, especially when they add the lunch break, I feel like that in itself was a great idea because it takes away from the short. You kind of just cool off and then you get back to a bigger gag.
I think it's just Chuck continually experimenting. Sometimes he'll experiment in broader ways, and sometimes it'll be in subtler ways, just like in terms of the design, like in this case. But let's take a look at the short, I reckon, because this one's basically just gag after gag, and thankfully they're pretty good. And as we open up with the short, we get that whole idea that, hey, these sheepdogs take turns, night shift, day shift kind of thing. Fred is the other sheepdog, so I guess Fred is the one that works at night, and as someone that works nights from time to time, if you do it all the time, it really does mess with your brain. But anyway, that's just an aside. We set it up, the sheepdog's out, he's having a look, and we see our antagonist, which is the wolf, again, unnamed here because they still haven't figured everything out. The first gag, what do you think of the actual work whistle gag, how the wolf tries to trick the sheepdog? I don't know, it kind of makes the sheepdogs come across as really dumb. I don't know, what do you think?
I think it really played the idea of, again, the blue collar worker aspect a lot. They didn't really test with that. They kept it as its own realm in later cartoons, but it makes for a good gag and it kind of catches you off if you haven't watched this as much because me and you don't really see this one compared to the other five Salmon Ralphs where they're better defined, but it is good and it is fun to see them actually play around with the idea of he is a blue collar worker and he is only attached to the hours.
So he comes across as, oh, lunch already? And it's like, all right, I'll have my lunch. And then he barely eats his lunch and already lunch is finished and then to have the end of the day. And I do like the fact that the wolf didn't get too greedy. He could have just made it that it's like the end of the day when it's clearly not.
Mm.
But I do like how the sheepdog finally realizes the mistake. We see, I'm assuming it's a church, either a church or a town hall or something, with that giant clock saying 9 o'clock.
I think another fun thing about the opening is, again, that nice little rendition of 5 o'clock whistle. Another thing I like about the opening is that, unlike later shorts, as I mentioned, he doesn't have really any respects for the fact he's a blue collar worker. But I also like the framing. Like, you always see Sam, or Fred in this case, looking up a hill. And that was something they kept later on, where he was always up on that hill.
Yeah, exactly. One of the big bits of information I like in this one is when we see the wolf. He thinks he's won. He thinks the sheepdog's out of the way, so he grabs that whole pile of sheep, and we hear the rendition of Twinkle Twinkle for some weird reason. Yeah, and he walks off screen. We hear a bang, and we know what happens, so it's pretty good. It does make it come across that the sheepdog is not as bright. But then again, if you have been a blue-collar worker or even a worker in a call center or whatever, like I've been, you're definitely counting the hours, and you can only wish that your day will go a little extra quick in that kind of work. But in any case, the next bit is the bush and tree bit, which I thought was pretty good from a timing perspective as well, especially when the tree whacks the bush and the wolf's figuring out, hang on, like, why am I getting hit here? I thought it was great.
I thought it was a great gag. I think my favorite gags in this are the ones with the rope and then the one with the wildcat.
And I actually think in this short, the gags actually get better and better. They start off sort of slower, but then they increase in speed, which is pretty good.
I guess they were still working it out. They just didn't edit the gags, or they came up with better gags along as they were writing.
And there's even this one little shot that I liked how they included it, where this bush had to put the sheep back. If you look at the background, you can see that the tree is sort of tapping its feet. It's like, put it back, that kind of stance, if you will. I thought it was a nice little touch, which I don't recall even seeing. In fact, I don't even recall seeing this short since way back when I watched the Looney Tunes Golden Collection Volume 1 for the first time. This is like watching a whole new short, really, for me.
Yeah.
But anyway.
This was also what I would have had to watch, because that was the Golden Collection I rented the most at the library, but I don't really remember this one. Again, the one I always remember, I believe, is the second one in the series.
I love the flute bit. And I think it's hilarious because this wolf just happens to have the beard and the horns and, of course, the flute. But I'm just trying to figure out that gag. I thought he would have just gone up to the sheep and try and manipulate the sheep, but he goes up to the sheepdog instead, which I thought was kind of weird. But I don't know. I thought it was funny. But
That was a nice, weird gag. I tend to think of the Roadrunners and these cartoons as less as chase cartoons and more as catch cartoons because the coyote never really chases him. He's always trying to catch the Roadrunner, really. Sometimes by chase, but usually by invention. And here it's sort of the same thing. Ralph Wolf is always trying to catch sheep, but in this case, there's a bodyguard protecting them, sort of like a cat, mouse, dog cartoon. But there isn't really a lot of chase element to it, I've noticed.
yeah, exactly. So as we go on, we get into that wonderful gag of the sheep going in the holes. And for me, this is where Treg Brown shines with all the sound effects. That whoop, whoop. I wonder how he made that sound. Do you know how he would? Do you have an idea of how he would have made that sound?
It's possible he made it with, like, a part of an instrument, or he may have blew into something, or speeding up a whistle, something like that, maybe.
Yeah, I'll be curious to know exactly how he would have achieved that sound. And guys, you watching this video, if you have an idea, definitely let me know in the comments. But it's a great sound effect, and it's quite clear Treg Brown's, oh yeah, I'll just use this one sound effect and just repeat it over and over, and maybe slightly alter the pitch if necessary. But it's a nice little gag there. I thought it was funny. We then go to the Acme Wildcat, where Acme is now so prominent in all these shorts, and we all know where it's going.
Yeah.
As soon as you see the Wildcat being put there, you're like, yeah, we know. The Wildcat's going to attack the wolf, isn't it, right? But the animation of the cat going wild, actually, I wonder who would have done that bit of animation.
I don't
But
know
it's,
offhand, but I did notice that there's only 3 animators on here. I guess there was a bit of a change going in the back. Maybe an animator left. I think Richard Thompson comes in around this time.
But the animation of the cat going wild is pretty cool. But I still think there should have been maybe a punchline, and I guess Chuck Jones does do this in one of the Roadrunner shorts, something similar, where there will be like a sign on the box saying that this particular animal hates, in the Roadrunner's case, a coyote. So in this case, I think they should have maybe put a sign saying, warning, wildcats love to eat wolves or something.
Yeah,
I
they
don't
did
know,
that.
something like that.
Yeah, they would do that a little later on when they were using more sites and such to cut back on budget issues, but I think this was the most Roadrunner-ish out of any of the gags because there's a setup and you know what's going to happen and then it happens. And especially because it also
Yeah.
plays around with the landscape a little because the wildcat just goes directly to the back and goes after him. And again, this sort of gag makes me think exactly that this was sort of Chuck Jones doing this cartoon parodied the Roadrunners themselves because it's set up in such a Roadrunner-ish way, except the fact that there's, of course, the blue collar twist.
Yeah, we get the rope gag, which is a nice quick gag, but I love the fact that of all the things that the wolf happens to pick up, who does he pick up? The sheepdog. Yeah, of course. Again, the expressions of the sheepdog in that scene is fantastic. So again, it's a quick gag, but it works so well. And we get a gag which is kind of Tex Avery in nature because it just keeps on building and building and building. And I'm assuming Chuck must have gotten inspired by that. In fact, the short Rabbit of Seville even has something similar with the build up all the guns and
Mhm.
cannons. You get the build up
Yeah.
here. Same thing where it's just, okay, who's going to have the last laugh of someone else falling to the ground? It just keeps on building
Yeah,
and
you know it's
building
gonna be
and
Sam's sheepdog,
yeah.
but you don't know when that's gonna happen.
Yep.
Again, this is my favorite scene, especially when they're going on the rope. You see Sam's on it, and then they go a little downwards. You don't see their facial expressions, and they come back up. And it's again Ralph realizing that he's screwed up. And then they start sawing each other. And again, it's the majority of the cliff that goes down. I guess Maltese was feel like particularly inspired by building it up, and I guess they had the footage to be able to do it. A gag usually wouldn't go on that long in the Roadrunners. Again, these cartoons are a little bit toned down in terms of their speed, which I guess works because again, it's a job.
It actually makes it work so much better once, again, the wolf is also seen as blue collar worker too.
That's how you know we're adult. We keep using that word blue collar.
Yes, exactly. Yay, being an adult is great. Well, not really. Part of it is. Most of it's not. So if you're under 18, enjoy it while it lasts, okay? So then we get the dynamite bit, which I don't know why. I guess, again, this is probably because I'm an adult now and I look at boring things, but I like the animation of the bubbles during the dynamite bits. That would have been the effects animator, wouldn't it? It wouldn't be one of the main.
Yeah, I think AC Gamer by this point was retired. It would have been Harry Love, who was again an old school kind of guy. He had been working since the 20s at Columbia. He must have met Friz Freleng there, and that's probably how he ended up at Warner's to some extent.
The amount of discipline you would need to be an effects animator, especially at that time, because nowadays you could just put in a lot of effects in a computer, right? In an editing program, whereas here, it's all by hand. So,
You have to use
yeah,
special brushes. You have to kind of come up with how you're going to do it, etc.
exactly. And know how bubbles actually work, because you see a bubble pop, but if you watch it in slow motion, there's a lot more to it. So it's more fascinating. Oh, and the gag is great, but mind you, the dynamite gag. I found myself fixated at how these bubbles were done. It's just, I don't know. Call me weird on that front, but I thought it was an interesting
I
thing.
think the effects animators were older guys who weren't necessarily up to par with being able to keep up with deadlines. I'm not necessarily certain about that, but I do know that special effect animator specialties went back to around the mid 30s and were usually done by, again, specialists. But I get the impression later on it was also guys who knew the craft very well but couldn't keep up with the footage.
Maybe that's the case, yeah. And we end up with the final gag, which I thought was great, playing up again the blue collar thing, where how did the sheepdog know that it wasn't really Fred?
I guess that's another thing that goes on at these sort of jobs where you're trying to get like an extra minute or two installing.
Yeah, it's maybe not the best punchline in these Sam and Sheepdog shorts, but I don't know, it was funny. I liked it.
Yeah, it's a good
You know,
start for
maybe
the series.
exactly. What could have made the final gag a little bit better is show the clock as being 5 to 5 or something. And that's how he knew. And then when the real Fred comes into it, it's actually 5 o'clock. I think that's what they could have done there. Or maybe they tried to, didn't work out. I don't know, but whatever.
I think the fast
Whatever.
cutting
It's
makes it
fine.
absurdly funny because again, you don't expect it. That's the great thing about some of these Mike Maltese gags is that while you have a basic idea of what's going to happen, he always puts in a little extra surprise. Again, this is
Yeah,
a pretty darn good cartoon. And again, Chuck and Maltese improve the idea a lot more going forward.
exactly. You think of this as like Simpsons season 1, and there's another Simpson reference for the day in these reviews. Hey, we're going to start 1953 strong. But if you look at the first season of The Simpsons, there was a lot of things that just weren't set up or set in stone. And this is the same sort of thing here. You get a nice germ of idea, but even with subsequent shorts being better with the concept, this one's still pretty solid. I give this one 8 out of 10. I think it's not a go-to, especially with the sheepdog and wolf shorts, but it's pretty good. Nice one. 8 out of 10. What would you give this one?
I think I would give it like a 7, 7.5, maybe, something like that.
So it's not top tier, but honestly, if it's on TV, I'll watch it. It's funny. It's just maybe not as memorable as, but these shorts do get better at least.
Really good.
Yeah, exactly. Especially some of the last few are pretty good. Can't wait to get to those. But that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, guys. And until next time, take care.
That's all, folks.